What is the difference between a personal trainer and a life coach?
Well, in some ways they're quite similar. You're working one-to-one with someone. You're trying to understand someone and trying to provide the best bespoke service. So they have that in common. I think traditionally people think of personal training as maybe more the physical side of things, like the exercise side of things. But I think personal training has evolved over the last 10, 20 years where it is more holistic. And they will look at people's lifestyles, people's well-being on a bigger scale. With a life coach, again, it depends on your definition of a life coach, because there are hundreds of different types of life coaches.
I see.
But as there are lots of different types of personal trainers, but if you're going to look at maybe a good life coach, I think they would consider also the whole holistic landscape, and they would consider the physical, but they want to be thinking about, is that person's life moving in the direction they want to? Is it moving in line with their values and their passions?
I see. What led you to explore the bridge, the divide between those two things? Was it personal training was your passion to begin with, and your sort of fixation, or were you sort of conscious of the fact that you sort of wanted to explore more than the physical, and your physical was your sort of way into that?
I got into the fitness space from a physical perspective. Left the army and was like, right, I want to be a fitness trainer. I want to be helping people get fitter, stronger and healthier. And I think as you go through your life and your career, you sort of learn lessons along the way, and you sort of observe things that give you the most passion, things you have the most kind of authentic alignment towards, and maybe also what you feel people need. And for me, I felt like I had the most energy and inspiration talking to people about mindset and psychology in their life. And also in my personal life, I could see things that I was struggling with and areas where I needed to kind of work and grow on. So you kind of align the two, hence why I've gone down more the life coaching path now.
I see. Did that come partially from the military, where everything is very regimented and everything's a lot of drive, and was there an aspect to that? Did the difference between that career and normal life sort of play a part in that transition for you?
The army is very dogmatic, very much kind of like, these are the rules, this is what you do, you get it done, let's go. There's not a lot of empathy, there's not a lot of understanding, but there's a lot of productivity.
These wheels need to fit into place
right
now. Yeah.
And in some ways that translates in some positive way. And I was very hesitant by saying some, because I do mean some positive ways into civilian street and into personal training, but most people don't just need to be told what to do. They need to be listened to, they need to be understood. The coach, the trainer needs to understand who they're working with. So there was a benefit of some of that military training into civilian street and coaching, but it was probably a small amount, and I had to work on a lot of other skills around that to build my coaching business.
Wow. I imagine that when it comes to the discipline required for physical training, I bet there's a lot of coincidence, but then
yeah, because people want to get fitter and stronger. There's going to be a degree of challenge involved with that. You can't get fitter and stronger or progress in any area of your life without some challenge and some discipline, some resilience. And the military trains you to have that, but as I said, it doesn't really have the understanding and the empathy side that I needed to work on throughout my kind of coaching journey, because the messages weren't kind of getting through. I wasn't seeing a lot of behaviour change. I was just seeing a lot of good workouts. Challenging workouts, and I got known for that. But I was like, I need something more. I'm lacking that fulfillment. I'm lacking that kind of purpose, and that's kind of you evolve over time. And the place I'm in now is a lot more aligned and a lot more fulfilling.
Brilliant. So speaking of training, you did the certificate training here in psychodynamic counselling, and when you think of existing in that physical mode of being, it might be sort of a jump to go straight to sort of a psychodynamic specialty of like working with people, talking to people. A lot of people hear the word counselling and they think of a very cerebral, very back and forth, like verbal mode of being, and it's a very it's almost like mind and body distinction. Like in that way, it's quite the far apart on the sort of spectrum. So what led you to that? Was it a sort of adventure to find that specific certificate, or was it a case of you sort of knew what you wanted to do from the outset, knowing what you kind of lacked on the the verbal side and the sort of like interfacing one-on-one side of things with people.
Can you say it again, Jack?
So sorry. So people tend to think that counselling and sort of the one-on-one, like speaking with people, sort of mental health faculty, it's quite distant on the spectrum. So they're really like heavy on body stuff.
Yes.
So
okay.
how did you find out about counselling as like a modality? How did you find out about this sort of skill set that you could even begin to sort of study towards?
Okay, yeah, I think there's two parts to that, your question. I think the other part is like, how do you start to take people from a physical journey to a mental journey, and maybe also how I did that myself, potentially.
Yes, they're sort of intertwined, I suppose, with studying.
Yeah, so I think if you want to grow and develop, you can't look at things one-dimensionally. And if you just look at the physical body, you are looking at things one-dimensionally. And maybe with what we know with modern science, we know we're not just a physical body, as in the physical side, the biochemical side, we've got a psychological side that influences the physical, the neurological, the chemical side. So I think as you learn more about the body, you can't help but start to entertain the mind and the power of the mind. And as you learn more about psychology, you can see how that can impact people's lives, because every interaction is a psychological interaction. You can't have a conversation with someone, not just even in my work, but in any part of my life or any of our lives, without some psychological interaction. So the first part of the journey for me was to actually become more self-aware, understand myself a little bit better. Well, who am I in this conversation? What am I carrying? What are some of my beliefs, some of my biases, some of my perceptions that might be unhelpful and blocking this conversation moving forward, and ultimately blocking this client moving forward. So it was a self journey, and I think if linking that into maybe the kind of counselling course, which we'll go and talk about, I'm sure, but that is a personal, professional development together. So we've got the professional development in how I can help others, but the personal development was the foundation to all of it, because you're reflecting, you're using a journal to be introspective, think about your emotions that come up. And if you can be more self-aware in yourself, then you can help others more effectively. And then you can help them in their journey go from maybe more of a traditional physical side, especially with men. You want to be very physical, get in, and that's great. And you can have a personal journey with the physical side of things, but if you never entertain the importance of the mental, psychological element, you're missing a huge part of the puzzle when it comes to human health and well-being.
Interesting. Do you find that there's a sort of gap between the male and female clientele, and if you serve like one side or the other more favourably or more significantly?
I think we've got to be careful not to put people into pigeonholes, but maybe a general trend and observation would be, and I'm sure we would generally see this in society, men are probably a bit more emotionally suppressed and are maybe not as open to talking. And we see that in the data, don't we? Like, women seem to be more open to counselling. And on the counselling course, there was me and 2 other men, and the rest was female.
Interesting.
So I'm sure that's kind of a common trend as well. So I think there's a lot of work to be done for everyone around our health and our well-being. But I think with men, mentally, emotionally, we sort of push that away a little bit. And we'll talk about the mind in ways that we're happy. Strength and resilience is good words to use for men. But emotions, let's not go there. That's not very masculine. That's not very kind of male. But actually, we all have emotions. So I think how I would deal with a male would be very different to how I deal with a female. But more so, it's more about how you deal with the person. Exactly. You haven't got a woman or a man in front of you, you've got a person. How's that person? Because you get women who are very emotionally suppressed and men who are also very emotionally open. So we've got to be quite careful with our own preconceived ideas on what men and women are like.
I suppose they can sense that if you come in with preconceived notion, they'll immediately sort of resist that.
Well, because I'm guessing what they need.
Yes.
I'm assuming what you need, Jack. Yes. I'll tell you what you need. As a man, you need this, you need this, blah, blah, blah. Well, I don't know what you need.
Back into the military.
Yeah, and exactly. That's the military mindset. And what you learn, especially the counselling side of things, is parking your own judgments and your own stuff and trying to deal with that person as like a blank slate. I know nothing about you. Tell me, I want to learn.
Wow.
Tell me more. Let's explore you as a journey together, side by side. You're in the driving seat, and I am just the passenger. And I'm going to maybe help guide and go, well, Jack, you could go over here and you could go over here, but it's down to you. And we guide that within the conversation, and then we guide that within the coaching journey as well.
Wow.
But the client is the one in charge. It's their journey, their experience. It's not my stuff. It's you and your values.
It's interesting that you work in the life coaching, like a specific life coaching role in the larger TWPT framework. So is there a physical, what exactly is the work like in the sense of like bridging physicality with the sort of mental approach, or the physicality but like the life style approach? Does it come with a lot of physicality to it, or is there a sort of process that you go through with people that's more strategic?
So do I go through a process that's more strategic with people? So I think previously I would have worked with people who would have come from the physical,
right,
and we start to build on the mental. Now, as a life coach, I deal with the whole lifestyle, and we talk a lot about having a health foundation, exercise, sleep, nutrition. I thought if you haven't got those pillars roughly in place, anything higher up the chain, like, you know, even your emotional health, your mental health, your relationships, don't know how we get there without having a bit of a foundation. If you're poorly slept and your nutrition's bad and you're never exercising, you're not doing anything for your health, your relationships aren't going to be great. You are going to struggle. You know, you are going to not be as motivated and energised for work. You're not going to be as productive. So deal with those health foundations. So I will always be a believer and a massive fan of having a strong physiological, biological, healthy foundation to build from. And that's how I work within my business.
Amazing. Can I ask you to revisit the day, essentially, you found the Counselling Centre's training? Like, what was that like? What was the thought process? Did you have any concerns or sort of questions going into that and thinking, like, is this right for me?
Yeah. Well, I suppose the journey for me to get there was, first of all, like a personal development journey. So I actually went and did my own therapy. And I'll chat to clients who are into psychology, and they'll be like, wow, we've got this, I'm learning this, I'm learning that. So I know, listening to people talk about psychology, I was like, well, give me more information. I did my own therapy, I thought this is incredible. I read books and thought this is amazing. And I had the course actually recommended to me by 2 clients who had previously done it.
Interesting.
So you pull that together, you just go into a course of, you know, with excitement and curiosity of like, don't really know what to expect. There may be a natural bit of apprehension, like, okay, is this going to be the right thing for me? You never really know, but if you can look at your values, and look at where you want to go in your life, in your career, you can get kind of better understanding as this is the right path for you, and 100% it was the right path for me.
That's fascinating. What was the course like in terms of the experience of doing it?
Well, it was an experience, and I think that's the great thing about it. The course isn't just learning about psychology and counselling. You do learn that. You've always got learning counselling skills, so basically listen better, you know, reflective listening, all that sort of stuff. So basic kind of just good human skills, if I'm honest. You know, it's not being counsellors, but actually just to be good to people. We probably all need to listen better. We all need to maybe speak less at times and try and seek to understand others before seeking to be understood.
Interesting. I
think counselling skills teach you that, amongst other things. Then you've just got understanding psychology. Amazing, understanding the history of it, understanding psychodynamic psychology and where it comes from and its roots. And then you've got what I feel is like 50% of the course, like I alluded to earlier, it's your own personal development journey.
Interesting.
You're journaling, you're reflecting, you're being introspective, going, oh, when we talked about this on child development, this brought up something from my childhood or my relationship with my father or my mother. And I've done a little bit of that in counselling, but the course also allows you to build on that and just meet a host of like-minded people, which how great is that? You know, you've got people who are all wanting to grow and develop in the same area, which is incredible.
Interesting. That's really cool. Did you find that you wished that you'd had this sort of Was there anything that you wished you'd known about beforehand in terms of like what you were being educated on?
I think before you go into any course, it's good to do some reading.
Yes.
And it's good to learn about the subject a little bit more before you go and do the subject, if that makes sense. And before doing a course, I personally find it's useful to read some books. So when you start learning something on a course, you're not learning it for the first time. You've heard it somewhere, you've read something in a book. Oh, I understand a little bit about Sigmund Freud. I've heard the name. Okay, I've got something to link into in my mind. I personally find that really useful. Some people maybe not. So I think learning, reading about whatever you're going to go and do probably puts you 3 or 4 steps ahead. So because there's a lot of information to absorb. It's great information, but to give yourself a fighting chance.
You can go a bit deeper into the information.
Go a bit deeper before, and then you can. Yeah, you said when you're on the course, you can take in some other bits that you might have missed because you're just trying to take in the surface level stuff.
Brilliant. Was there any particular aspect of the education that you've received or gone on to give that's really altered your trajectory? And this could be across all of your all of the certifications that you've received. Was there a turning point specifically?
Yeah, it's going to change my kind of life path. Definitely. Yeah, I think when you go and experience something, and say, so we're talking about the course, you go and experience the course, I think you listen to yourself and you go, how do I feel when I'm experiencing that thing? And for me, to experience a sense of calmness, but also excitement and contentment, but also fulfillment. That's quite important stuff to listen to.
Yes.
And when I was on the course, they were all the kind of feelings that I got. So I thought, I'm in the right place.
Interesting.
I'm in the right place. This is something that I want to be good at. This is something that I want to help people with mentally, emotionally, and learn more about myself. So I think when you learn that is going to impact your life. So it impacted my career choices, where I was going to go. So impacted me moving towards life coaching, and more specifically life coaching for men. And in my relationship with my daughter, learning a lot more about child development and the healthy needs that children need to have, and what I can do as a father to be the best father possible. And also, my romantic relationships as well, and make sure they're as healthy and secure as possible, and my friendships. And all of that, you can get all that from the course, because you can learn about yourself and your flaws and your strengths and your insecurities. If you're willing to do that work and look inwards, you can gather so much value from the course that isn't just the academic side.
Brilliant. Really, really cool. So you have someone who is really mentally healthy. They have good friendships, they're sort of social, they have sort of a stable foundation for that, but they're quite overweight, they tend to have maybe some bad physical habits, maybe they indulge in alcohol a little bit too much, smoking maybe, versus someone who keeps himself in good shape, maybe struggles with social relationships, maybe struggles with expressing themselves, and maybe struggles with their mood quite often. Which one of those people do you sort of see as a more critical case to address?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. I think first and foremost, everyone's got their struggles, haven't they? I think we can see one struggle as better or worse than the other, but actually you might see someone from the outside and make those judgments and go, oh, they're in great shape, they must have all their life sorted, or someone's got loads of money, their life must be great. But behind it is toxic relationships with other people, food, alcohol, drugs, who knows? So I think it's important not to make a judgment on which is the greater or lesser case, or what one needs more work. I think we all need our own work, and we've all got our own struggles and challenges here. And yes, someone who's got issues with their weight, and that's really common, isn't it, to struggle with your weight? And I think there's loads of different reasons for that. Again, this psychodynamic course will be biased to looking at your past and your previous history, and I think we have to entertain that. We have to entertain the power of our previous experiences to how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about others, about the world, and how we have these different relationship dynamics. And that will come out in different ways, because the person from the outside might look fit and healthy, but maybe they're obsessively fit and healthy and they can't let that go.
Interesting.
And then, is that healthy? What is healthy, what is not, is also an interesting discussion as well. I think to answer your question, then we all have things to work on, and we all have some flaws and some problems in our lives, whether it's our relationship, whether it's how we deal with our health, our exercise behaviours. No one's got all this stuff all figured out. So again, for me, it's just dealing with the person and thinking about what's driving some of those issues, what's driving some of those unhelpful behaviours, what's driving some of those problems, and how do we find solutions? And I'm careful with the word solutions, because sometimes the solution is just to be understood, first and foremost.
Yes.
I think we're quite quick, especially in my industry, to jump in with, I've got some ideas for you, do this, do this, do this. And like, well, do you feel understood? Do you feel listened to? Do you even understand yourself?
Yes.
If you don't understand your problem fully, how can we even come up with solutions?
Right.
We're very quick in my world, whether it's health, fitness, life coaching, I'll give you solutions. Let's understand the person a lot better, and then we can come up with solutions at some point.
Wow. Does it struggle sometimes to navigate whether or not you have an idea for what would make someone's life, what would address someone's concerns, versus is it a struggle to sort of suppress your own ideas?
Massively.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ego kicks off, Jack. Yeah, you're like, I can see this, I can see something that you can't. But if you're not ready for me to talk about that, me jumping in with that, what are you going to do? You shut down.
Right.
If I say that too quickly, or start giving you all the ideas and solutions and telling you what you should do with your life, and have you seen this flaw on that, you're just going to pull away.
Right.
And this is a relationship between me and my client. Really important relationship. And you're right, if I jump in with my ego and my problem solving ability too quickly, ironically, we don't move forward. Sometimes we might even move backwards, because the relationship is starting to be broken due to my ego. So one of the things you learn on the counselling course is to take that breath. Don't try, and I don't always get this right, don't try to pull someone or push someone down a certain direction. Let them kind of guide it, and then have the ability to be open to whatever subject gets brought up.
I see.
And whatever the client brings into the room is often what's in the forefront of their mind. So recognise that, see that and validate that. It's not about me and where I want to take my client, it's about where they want to go based upon their values, their problems, and what's going on in their world. And that, again, is what the course teaches you.
The client relationship must be really fascinating, because it raises the question of, when do you know when your work is done? Essentially, when is the job of a life coach ever over? Yeah.
I mean that would be based upon someone's goals and what they want from that experience.
Right.
That's going to look very individual. Some people might have a specific outcome they're looking for. I want to be able to create this in my life. It could be a certain relationship, it could be a certain career aspect, it could be a certain way with health. But I find over the years, and I've got some clients I've coached for almost 17 years now, plenty of clients over a decade, and it's just a journey we go on together, a health journey, a life journey. I'm always learning more as a coach, always learning more, not just about the people I work with, but just learning more about well-being, health and psychology. So it is never ending, and our self-exploration is never ending, but the coaching journey can end at different points depending on the person's goals and what they need and what they want.
Amazing. What was it like administering counselling for the first time, when you sort of knew you were accessing that skill set and giving it to someone?
It's an interesting word, isn't it? Administering.
It's a maybe fortunate word. But
No,
when did you use counselling to fix someone?
Yeah, totally. And to be fair, that's exactly what I didn't do. I do think we can creep into thinking people need to be fixed.
Yes. Yeah.
And I don't think anyone needs to be fixed, because we're assuming that people are broken. I think anyone's broken. I think we have some struggles and challenges in life, and we can navigate them together. I think you have to be very careful in the health and fitness space, especially if people feel like they've been counselled.
Interesting.
Because I think people will shut down.
Right.
I think when I learned these skills as a fitness trainer,
here's my ideas for you.
I'm going to sit down and we're going to have a counselling chat. A lot of people will probably shut down then, but if you can be careful about just listen, that's counselling. Like, what's your definition of counselling at the end of the day?
Interesting.
Being a good listener, having some reflective questions, you know, repeating what someone's just said back to you, paraphrasing it, their counselling skills. Do I have to do that in a counselling setting? Can I do that on a gym floor? Can I do that in loads of different environments, in an environment where the individual feels safe with? And slowly but surely you can kind of build on that communication. You can build on someone feeling a bit safer, them feeling a bit more secure to open up, to jump in and go, right, know what we're going to do? I'll do some counselling skills with you today. You're like, oh, great, James. And you'll just, how nervous would you feel? We just have a relaxed conversation and suddenly you're like, I didn't realise I'd be talking about this with James. No, neither did I.
Yeah.
But actually, because you felt quite relaxed and you felt quite calm and safe, you could open up a little bit just by me providing a safe space, which is you to feel listened to, you to feel understood, and me just to hold that space for you. And again, the counselling course teaches you to be brave enough to hold that space.
Interesting.
Can you hold silence? Can you hold difficult emotions within yourself and others? And they're skills we all need in life. So I don't tend to think of it as, learn counselling and then prescribe it in this sort of way. I see it as they're just skills for life.
Yes.
They're skills for life. And yes, you might want to really perfect them and do that as an actual career. For me, I have moulded it into coaching and I found it extremely valuable because they're vital communication skills that we all need. If you want to develop in your career, in any career, I think actually learning a little bit about counselling skills would be a game changer for you.
Do you have any friends who have sort of non-traditional counselling careers in that sense, who haven't necessarily gone down the straight and narrow, I'm going to be a professional counsellor, I'm going to go down the mental health path, but bridge into other disciplines and use that skill set, or make use of that education?
So do I know other fitness professionals? So I'm not confused on the question, Jack. So
anyone who's non-traditional counselling, or do you begin to see it out in the world, maybe among your friends, maybe in sort of your personal life, or just I suppose do you begin to see counselling skills being used in other
yes, I think
places?
Some people use those skills and they haven't traditionally learned them. They pick them up socially. So I know people in the health and fitness world who haven't learned traditional counselling skills, but they've picked up through their intuition and their feedback that, you know what, I should talk less and listen more. I should understand more about people. And often the people who are the most successful as coaches and personal trainers, their people skills are incredible. Always, I don't see anyone being successful without having good people skills.
Right.
And whether you go and learn them traditionally through counselling, which I think will help everyone, some people just are able to pick this up a little bit more kind of innately, maybe through their environment and their upbringing and how they were developed socially. And some people maybe not. Some people it's really hard for them to connect and to hold space and to listen. I think we can all work on it, we can all develop it, but I think it comes maybe a little bit easier and more naturally to some people based upon their previous experiences and their current environment.
And do you see a formal education like the certificate sort of benefiting any one of those groups in any varying kind of way? Yeah,
I think it's easy to see a course like psychodynamic counselling skills course as
words.
Easy like whoa, what's all this malarkey? Let's stay away from that. But actually, we're thinking about a course that's going to teach you more about psychology, teach you more about yourself, teach you more about people. How's that not going to benefit everyone in every walk of life, as far as I would see it? So I think it can expand to a greater audience personally, but it's obviously a vital stepping stone if you want to be a counsellor, but that's obvious. But I think actually it can, for me as someone in the health and fitness industry and now into life coaching, it's been a vital part of my journey.
Wow. How have you come to understand your own profession? If you're sort of able to zoom back on it and understand how your approach is perhaps unique among life coaches as people.
Yeah, I think the key word you used there was zone out. I think the great thing again about the course is you're out of your kind of normal peer group. I think we all get stuck in a certain bubble, don't we, in life, around our peers, around our friends and family, and it all becomes a bit of an echo chamber. and you can't see what you can't see when you're in it. And you go and do a course, or you go and spend time with a different group of people, and you get a different perspective. You see things differently, and that's so important. So important for your growth and development. You can't grow sometimes when you're stuck in the same bubble, especially if it's not a healthy bubble. But we all need to step out of that. And if you step out of that, I feel part of that should be not just looking outwards, it should be looking inwards. And this is where probably having your own therapy or your own sort of coaching is really important, to look at your own stuff. What am I bringing into this profession? Why do I want to do this profession? Why is it important to me? And not see myself as better, special, put myself on a pedestal. I've got my own struggles and challenges, and I have done plenty of times in my life, and if anything, that's helped make me a better coach. But you have to take a step out of the bubble, and you have to look inwards and be brave enough to sort of do the work on yourself, if I'm honest. And then you bring something really authentic into your field. So for me, I can bring something more authentic into the life coaching field if I understand James and James's values and my authentic voice. But if I can't find that, then I'm just going to fit into how the industry is.
Yes.
And I'm going to lose my authentic way of doing things then.
You don't want to lose your spark.
You're going to lose your spark, can't you? Because you can't have a spark because you're just trying to be like everybody else. So you have to step out of the bubble, do that work, and then when you go back into your career of choice, you're going to be a better version of yourself, a greater version, a more authentic version, a more aligned, hopefully more fulfilled person.
You talked about bravery a couple of times, bravery in holding the space, bravery in investigating yourself. What are the sort of resistances that come up when you're sort of on the threshold, on the precipice?
Loads of resistance. Things about resistance is that we are great at telling ourselves a story to not go and do that thing. And with that, as human beings, if it's uncomfortable, we'll find a story. I don't need to go to the gym today. Like, I've got too much going on. I need to be at work. I haven't got time. You know, and it's such a convincing narrative. We truly believe it, and we do this in all walks of life. And it's part of being human. When you think about investigating yourself and looking at your past and your difficulties, and maybe even your own sort of traumas that you've experienced, that is really, really uncomfortable. To be able to sort of see yourself a bit more clearly in the mirror. I don't think it's never going to be a 100% clear mirror, because we're always going to have blind spots. But for that mirror to get a little bit clearer, it's going to be scary, because you're going to be taking stuff up and go, whoa, I can see that clearly now, and I like that bit. That bit isn't very nice. Right. So there's going to be loads of resistance to that subconsciously. Subconsciously, it's you're just going to find a way to not go there. And I see that with clients all the time, and there's no judgment, because we all do it. As soon as it gets a bit comfortable, I'll crack a joke. Right. They'll find a way of making it more light-hearted. Let's just have a bit of a laugh. We'll find anything to pull me down a different path.
Yes.
And you know what? Sometimes that's okay. I'll go with that. But I can see why they're doing that, because I've probed a little bit in an area that's a bit uncomfortable for them. But it's in the discomfort. It's in that ability to unpeel those layers where the true growth really happens. Otherwise, you just repeat the same cycles over and over again. Wow. And you tell yourself in January, you're going to do it differently. This is the year for you. This is the year all changes.
Every year.
This is the one. But if I'm honest, it will just be the same cycle. This is the new relationship. This is the one that's going to work now. I've figured it out. But have you changed? How have you grown? How have you changed? What work have you done? Because if you've got the same beliefs and the same ways of viewing yourself and your situation, then if I'm honest, you've just got another year down the line, but those same patterns are still in place. So by, again, doing the brave work and looking at yourself, looking at some of those insecurities and some of those difficulties and those previous experiences, you actually start to grow and change as an individual. And then your life starts to grow and change. But your life can't grow and change until you grow and change. It's impossible. You like the idea, I'll give you all the hacks, all the tricks, all the information. I don't get it, well, life's not changing. I've got all this information. Yeah. You've got all the information, but you haven't got self-information. You need to have self-information if you're going to change and grow and have the best life.
You mentioned the mirror. Looking at that mirror seems to be a very core aspect of the sort of relationship you develop with yourself. What is your maybe relationship, or what relationships do you spot when you're working with clients between the self-development aspect of that process and the self-acceptance aspect of that process? Maybe there's a tension there, maybe not.
Well, I think self-acceptance is a part of self-development, really important part of self-development. But for self-acceptance, you've got to have awareness of it first of all.
That's a brilliant way of saying it.
So you have to. Like, I can't accept something I'm not aware of. It's impossible. When you become aware of it, that's when you want to push it away. Don't look at that. But actually, if we can look at that and go, oh, that's not very nice. That makes me feel really, sad, upset, angry. But I can come to terms with that.
Incredible.
I can accept that. I can accept that experience. And maybe that might take some time. That can be a journey. But all the time that you're not accepting it, ironically, it's still with you. And that's the crazy irony of this stuff. Like, if I don't look at it, it's all right. It's almost like it hasn't happened. But it has, because your body and your emotional system and your nervous system still holds that tension. Subconsciously, unconsciously, it's still there.
Right.
But because you've done such a great job of pushing it away, ignorance is bliss. It can feel very blissful, but I would argue, if you read the works of kind of like Gabor Mate and stuff, he would say your body keeps the score. It will show you that kind of, that tension will come out in different ways. It will come out in some sort of ways. And a lot of people's health issues, we can argue, is that emotional suppression? Is that, have they really come to terms with, have they really accepted where they're at, their problems, and maybe some things that have happened? So acceptance and self-development go hand in hand. They go hand in hand, but they are a never-ending journey as well.
Fascinating. I suppose when you feel like it hasn't happened, it's sort of always happening to you in the power that it holds over you to create that avoidance.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be, I feel that you're going to be a model of your past if you don't look at your past. At some point you've got to look at it, otherwise you're just a default version of how your parents brought you up, all your previous experiences, all those beliefs, and your life will just be your life. And there's no judgment with that. But I would argue, is that going to be the most aligned, authentic, fulfilled path for you? I would say not. Because you're not, are you really making your own choice? Or are you just being led by your subconscious and those previous experiences? You're just a result of what happened to you.
Yeah.
Often we are just a result. We don't realise it, but we are. How our actions and behaviours is just results of how we've been conditioned. But you need to break down that conditioning if you want to have different actions and behaviours. So it's not just as simple as learn some action points. That can help some people, but that's a very surface level action. If you've got someone who's been struggling for a long period, that isn't going to cut it. Wow. So the deeper the problem, the deeper you have to go. The more surface level the problem, you can probably do some surface level stuff. It's fine. If someone's got a good relationship with food, you have put on a bit of weight, you get them to track a bit of food, sort their fridge out a little bit, change their shopping habits, great results. But that's a surface level case. How about someone who's been struggling with eating behaviours for decades, their whole life? Am I going to deal with that person in the same way?
Likely not. That
would be incredibly naive as a coach. But if I'm honest, a lot of my industry will do that. It's a one-size-fits-all approach.
Wow.
You've got a problem, this is how we're going to solve it.
Interesting.
Well, what is the problem? How long have they struggled with this problem? Would dictate how deep you need to go. And some people really do need to go quite deep. They might need to go and have some deep psychological work. They might need to go into counselling and see a fully qualified psychodynamic counsellor. And that isn't me either. So they would go and they need to work with somebody else to really get to some of those root traumas and experiences. Does everyone need to do that to lose a bit of weight? No, but some people might need to. We're all individual here.
Were you shocked or in any way by how often the case is, or if it is common that people come to you sort of thinking, oh yeah, he's a personal trainer, he'll help me out with my physical problems.
Yeah.
And the linchpin really was a deeper emotional.
A lot of times, yeah. Yeah, but it's a journey that both people have to be very patient with. So yeah, traditionally a lot of people would have come to see me for the physical side of things, with maybe an injury or some pain or wanting to be stronger or leaner. And every time there's so much more deeper elements to that. There's always a psychological component.
Wow.
To greater or lesser degrees, but there's always a psychological component. I think my first sort of value of it is probably when I was working with people with injuries and chronic pain.
Wow.
I spent a long time working with people with injuries and chronic pain, and I realised that there's a massive psychological component here. Their beliefs around what pain is, what injury is, what they can do, what they can't do. And that door was opened actually through some kind of modern pain science. And modern pain science shows us that actually we have to do a better job at working with people, and not just muscles and joints. Because you're not just a muscle, you're not just a joint. You're a person who you experience pain, you experience your physical body. What is your experience? And people who are more advanced now with chronic pain and injury rehabilitation will care about the individual's experience, not just about their muscles and joints. Muscles and joints are important, but you're not just muscle and joints. Your sum is far, far greater than that.
That's such a fascinating point, because the instincts, I suppose, from an industrial perspective, is to say, oh, Bill's leg looks the same as James's. Like, they both look similar from an outside perspective, but there is a person attached to that.
There's a person involved with that injury and that pain. How is you have two people with the same pathology and that affect their lives totally differently. Their behaviours could be totally different. One could be really avoiding the movement, one could just be still aggravating it over and over again. So we're going to have our own different coping strategies for any problem, for any pain, physical or mental.
Yeah.
So to say, oh, this is your problem, this is how we solve it. Well, no, again, it comes back to earlier. How are you choosing to cope with this problem? Because I tell you what, you've probably done a really good job at having some really effective coping strategies that served you in the moment. But now, long term, 5-10 years later, they're maladaptive.
Wow.
They're not serving you. And whether we're thinking about physical chronic pain or mental pain, actually, very, very similar. Very similar. Looking at how we react to a painful experience, how we adapt to it in the moment, and how we still adapt to it years and years later. And sometimes, from childhood into adulthood, we're still adapting, choosing to adapt, choosing to cope in the same way we did when we were 5.
Wow.
Yeah, when you're 35, that is not serving you. That coping strategy is maladaptive, it's hurtful for your relationships, and it's hurtful for your overall well-being.
Wow. It's not just a leg, it's a leg and a relationship to a leg. Yeah. And you sort of have to...
And your relationship to pain.
Yeah.
Your relationship to the emotions as well. What is your relationship like with your emotions? If you avoid and suppress and push away, then that becomes your coping strategy. But then that's going to inhibit your life, because we're emotional creatures. We need to experience and feel our emotions so we can understand ourselves and others more effectively. It's going to improve our relationship with others, it's going to improve how we feel about ourselves, but we have to actually experience the uncomfortable ones as well as the nice ones. We need the full spectrum there, and that's difficult for men and women. But I think with a lot of work that I do with men, it's really hard to get into those kind of emotional core places, because it's really vulnerable.
Wow.
We don't want to be there. And for me, from military backgrounds, emotions, I didn't even know what emotions were. I was like, what do you mean emotions? What are emotions? I just had no clue whatsoever, like so emotionally suppressed and shut down. Apart from anger and aggression, I can talk about those ones, but that's about it. Really useful ones in the military. But actually, outside of that, we don't want to talk about sadness or anxiety or any of the other difficult ones. It just wouldn't even come up in conversation. Wow. I mean, I'm going back a few years now, so it might have changed, but the point is still that we need to build a better relationship with our emotions, slowly, gradually over time, and we need different approaches to that. What works for you might be different to what works for me. We need to be open to different experiences and different ways of helping each individual interpret, understand, and build a better relationship with their emotions.
What is the transformation like when you are engaging with someone who is particularly withdrawn or shut down, and you can see that the thing to approach would be the emotional state that they're in, but they aren't giving you an access vector any which way.
Yeah.
What sort of how's that to navigate?
You have to meet someone where they're at. You have to meet someone where they're at. That is so important. If I start to push a client down a path where they're not ready to go, that's not going to be good for their well-being or health at all. So it's understanding where someone's at and just finding a way to create some sort of extra awareness, some sort of extra discomfort that is only just out of the sphere of tolerance, just a little bit out. If I'm too far out and I start talking about someone who's not young James, start talking about emotional suppression, they're just shut. That's just too much. What I need is someone to say, like, well, how's your body feeling? What's going on? Gradually through counselling and managed spectrum and reading books, and I say gradually, that's a slow process over years. We have to have compassion for ourselves there, that it's a slow process, and coaches need to be able to, me included, meet people where they're at and go, well, they're here. No judgment. If I'd had that person's life experiences and what they were going through, I'd be exactly the same. How do we just get someone to be a little bit more reflective, a little bit more understanding, a bit more self-aware? Just challenge that zone of tolerance a little bit. And again, that's going to look different from person to person. And that we need to not be glued into how the outcomes need to look there. We need to be really open to someone's personal development, personal growth journey can look very different to somebody else's. So let's be really open-minded there and not say, well, for you to grow and develop, you must have this, this, and this, and this. No, let's just create a better life for someone. Yes. Let's just create a life that feels more exciting, more fulfilling, more aligned. Have healthy body, have healthy relationships, but that is messy.
Yeah. That
is complicated, and that is a slow process of evolution.
Amazing. That's amazing. If someone wants to go down a similar track to you, maybe bridging a bunch of different domains to sort of coalesce their own spark, their own approach to coaching others and sort of educating others, or bringing their own education in a way that will help others, are there any pieces of advice that you would give to someone who is maybe just fresh out of school, or maybe about to go into university, or they're not really well-directioned at the moment? What would you say to someone who is sort of like, James, I'm lost, I don't know where I'm going, like I sort of know what I want, but I know it's to help people, I know it's to guide people, and this, like, what you do inspires me. How would you convey to people what you've learned and about finding that direction?
Well, how you just phrase the question there, someone already has some idea. How amazing is that? I'll be like, wow, you've got some idea that you want to help people, you've got some idea in this type of field you want to be in. Tell me more. Like, why do you want to help people? Why is this a field that's so important to you? Why are you so passionate about it? Because that's incredible bit of self-awareness to have at 18, 19, 20, or in your 20s full stop. I didn't have that awareness at that young age. That's incredible. So I'd be validating someone's awareness and someone's ability to understand already what gives them fulfillment and a sense of meaning and purpose. Wow. And then we can build on that. We can then build from that and realise that you can only think about what's the next positive step you can take. And you can have an idea and a bit of a vision where you'd like things to be in 5 or 10 years' time. But I guarantee if you speak to someone who's 5 or 10 years older than you, 15, 20 years older, they'll say, I didn't think it would look like this.
Right.
The vision I thought isn't to what the vision, because you change, life circumstances change, things in your environment change that are out of your control. So have a mindset and a direction that is aligned with your values and aligned with you. It's really all you can do. Right. This is what I care about. This is who I am. So these are my strengths. This is my character. This is what I get enjoyment from, excitement from. Great. Walk that path. And I tell you what, you can have expectations of what you think it's going to look like, but I guarantee it won't look exactly like that. It will be positive. It will be great. It will be rewarding. But let's just think about that next step. What's the next step you can do? Because otherwise it's so overwhelming for young people to think, I need that purpose. I need to find out. I need to have this perfect direction for the rest of my career. No, you don't. No, you don't. Just pick a path. Listen to yourself. Get some feedback from how you're feeling. Do you feel aligned? Do you feel energised? Do you feel like you're good at this? Great. And if you don't, be honest with yourself. Be brave enough to go, this isn't the right path for me now, and it's okay to change, especially in our modern world. There's a host of different options that you can choose, but gear it around you and your values, and that is a process of exploration, because your values in your 20s will be different to your values in your 30s and your 40s and your 50s. So be open to changing, direction, and be brave enough, because people put themselves in a direction, they start to pigeonhole themselves, they start to create an identity around, this is who I am, this is what I do, and they become so conditioned to that, to step out of that seems so scary. I can't step out of that now. That's the path I've chosen.
Yeah.
You can, but to change path and change direction means a change of identity. And it does, and I've had to do that over the years. I've had to change my identity quite a few times in how I see myself as a person, as a coach. Because I'm not the same person that I was 20 years ago. So I have to be brave enough to be that different person and not go back to the old conditioned James of the past.
Right.
That doesn't mean I've got to check in every now and again and go, oh, have I been drawn off track a little bit? Am I getting sucked down that path that isn't right for me? I have. Bring myself back, centre myself and go, where is the most aligned path? And this isn't an exact science. So it's an exciting path. It's a scary path. It's a challenging path. But the alternative is a path where you have no fulfilment and no sense of autonomy and no sense of authenticity. And what would you prefer?
What's most exciting for you right now?
This. Loving what I do, the passion I have for what I do, educating others, supporting others, growing, learning, developing, moving in that positive direction, which is just one step at a time. I don't know what the result or the outcome will be, it almost doesn't matter. It matters that, again, I practice what I preach. Be brave enough to make the right decisions for me. That isn't always what others might think I should do, or where society's pulling me down. So it's being brave to be, the word I've used a lot today is authentic, but brave enough to be authentic, and that's all you can do in life, is try and take those one positive step forward and suck the joy of life in as much as you can. There's so many great things that we're standing on, so many great things of value, and so many important things to be grateful for. We can lose sight of that. I haven't got that. What have you got? Soak all those simple things in life, and you'll probably find there's a lot more nourishment day to day than what you can even imagine.
I mean, speaking to you and being in your presence now, I can feel full force of that. Is there anything you'd like to speak to plug, to shout out? No. I think it's been a really good conversation today. I've really enjoyed it. So thank you for the questions, and I think it's important for us all just to stop for a second and just to have a good conversation, to be reflective, think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. I think we should all do that, and I think that's the biggest benefit the people who I work with get, if I'm honest, is just to stop, jump off the treadmill of life just for a second, and just ask yourself some questions. How are you feeling? How are things going? What's going well? What isn't going well? What do you want to change? Amazing. Such
powerful questions. If you can do that and answer those and then act on those, your life's going to be good.
Powerful. Very powerful. James, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for speaking with me and enlightening me in so many different ways.
Pleasure.
It's been a really amazing conversation.
Thank you very much.